Hi, I'm Curt Frye, and in this movie, I would like to show you how to change the order of data that arrives in a workbook. The sample file that I'm using is a transpose function. That's an Excel workbook that you can find a link to in the video description below. In this scenario, I receive data based on experiments performed on batches of my product, and the data is arranged so that each row looks at a particular batch, and each column is an experiment. So row number 1, C4 through E4, represents all the experiments on batch number 1. Row 5 is the same for batch 2, continuing on. However, for another formula in a workbook that I inherited from a previous colleague, I need to have the data arranged in another order. Specifically, I need to have it transposed so that each of the columns, in this case C4 through C8, would be pasted into a row from H4 to L4. And you can do that on an entire array of data at one time. And I showed you how to do this in another movie. All you need to do is copy it, then click where you want the data to go in, and then you transpose to shift each of the rows into a column. So on the Home tab, we'll go up to the Paste button, click its down arrow, and then in the top section there is Transpose. So I'll click there, and you can see the data has been transposed, basically turning it on a diagonal axis from the top left to the bottom right, and 343 and 478 are both at the top left and bottom right corners, but the other values have been changed. So 458 in the area where I transposed it is now the second item in the first column, whereas before it was the second item in the first row. So that's okay, but you need to do it manually if you're going to paste that way. And yes, you could record an Excel macro, but there is actually an easier way to do it. So I will delete the data that I transposed pasted over, click in cell H4, type equal, and then I'll type transpose. This converts a vertical range of cells to a horizontal range or vice versa. So there we go. I've typed transpose, and then I'll select the range, which is C4 to E8, right parentheses, and enter. And the formula spills out so that I have my data arranged instead of each row representing a batch. Each column now represents a batch, and each row is data from an experiment that was performed on them. So if you have data that you need to rearrange in the way that I described here, you don't have to do a macro, and you don't have to do it by hand. Instead, you can just use the transpose function to do it within your worksheet with one single formula. I hope you enjoyed this tip. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to my channel.